too, because I totally listen until Debbie said, "Hey, did you remind Mike?" I totally forgot. It wasn't even on my schedule, so
Mhm.
I can't say anything to you because I didn't even have it. Okay, so I'm told by attorneys that um, the liability for notarization is like 6 years. And depending on what the crime is that the notary committed, that 6 years might start from the date they notarized, or it might start from the date that the fraud or violation happened. Either way, 12 years down the road, 13 years down the road, there's no liability, but it doesn't mean we can't get called to court. So we can be questioned literally forever. And I do know a notary in Montana who has just got through her questioning in court after 33 years after she notarized something.
Well,
So what do you think she remembered about that? Literally nothing. Here's my book. Tell me, what do you want to know? Yes, it's my handwriting. That's all she could do.
mhm.
If we were to purchase that, what insurance is it?
Professional liability or E&O?
The one right after it. If we stop being a
Oh,
notary,
okay.
you know.
So if you stop being an owner, let's go back because it wasn't in the recording. Okay.
Okay.
So let's say tomorrow you decide you're not going to be a notary anymore.
Okay.
You cannot just let your professional liability go.
Got
You
it.
have to purchase something called tail coverage or
T. Is it
extended reporting.
TAIL?
Yep, TAIL.
Okay.
Or it's also referred to as extended reporting period coverage. And
Okay.
so with a professional liability or they're essentially the same thing. They're both what we call claims made policies.
Okay.
So they're written on a claims made form. Now, all your other insurances, for the most part, your home, your auto, your business owner policy, they're all what we call occurrence-based forms. So on an
Okay.
occurrence-based form, there's only one trigger. Did I have coverage during the occurrence? And if that answer is yes, then it pays out. Where with professional and E&O, there's two triggers. You have to have coverage dating back to when it occurred, plus you have to also have coverage active when the claim is made. So if you look at your policy on there, there's something called a retroactive date. So that retroactive date is telling you how far back that professional liability will pay out. So, for instance, I talked to somebody today, they have a 2022 retroactive date. That means that if a claim comes tomorrow, but maybe it happened 3 years ago in 2022 or 2023, we'll call it, it would still be covered because we have that backdated retroactive date. So, when you decide you're going to call it quits, let's say, you'll contact your carrier and you'll say, "Listen, I need to purchase tail coverage." And usually okay, well, I have, I'm liable up to 6 years. So what we would do is we would look back at that reporting date or when you started and we'd say, "All right, well, we need to extend this out probably 6 years, really, because if you did something yesterday, you want to make sure if something comes down the road 6 years from now, you still have coverage." Now, they understand one that you're not practicing anymore, right? You're giving up your commission. So it's not going to be as expensive when you purchase that tail coverage because it's kind of on an off ramp, if that makes sense. And me as an insurance agent, I have to adhere to the same things. So what happens in insurance is a lot of people, they'll sell their book of business to another agent. Okay. And so if I were to sell my book of business to another agency, I would probably in my negotiations, I would negotiate that they had to pay for my tail coverage as part of that purchase and keep it active. And that would cover me, if that makes sense.
It does. Okay. So, wow. Okay. So we have our two other people. So we're going to pick this up after Debbie does the introduction.
Cool.
So go, Deb.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Beyond the Stamp with Debbie and Leslie. Today, we are excited to have our preferred vendor, Mike Vereecke from Customer First. Is that the name of
Customers,
your
yeah, Customers
Customer
First
First?
Insurance Group. Mhm.
And I am also proud to announce that he is one of our corporate sponsors. So, what I would like to do first, before we get back to the conversation that we started before we hit record, was this Michigan Notary Association. We're not lawyers. Nothing that we state here on this call is considered legal advice. We just disseminate good information, best practices. So please do not take anything said here as legal advice. With that, I will, Mike, I'll let you introduce yourself. Tell us about your business, and then we're going to get back to those burning questions that we started because we were just so excited. We couldn't wait for everybody to get here to
No
start asking
problem.
those questions.
So my name's Mike Vereecke. I'm with Customers First Insurance Group. I'm the agent owner. I've been doing insurance since 2009. I am a commercial lines coverage specialist designation agent, which is just a fancy way of saying I took a course on commercial coverages and when they apply. Um, I also have a YouTube channel called The Insurance Dork. If you want to check me out, I try to post good videos that talk about different coverage situations and try to put them in the layman's terms in language that you can understand. Um, and we're located in Chesterfield, Michigan. We're proud to be a corporate sponsor of MINA. You can find our link right on the website to purchase your bonds and find our contact information if you have questions about professional liability.
Thank
So
you.
appreciate you coming on. Seriously, you have been such a godsend for so many people who are part of the Michigan Notary Association. I want to pick up the conversation we were having. It's what's the insurance we need that when we stop being a notary?
It's called tail coverage. So it's just it's considered a tail of your professional liability. So it's still professional liability. It's just a very specific piece of the professional liability that covers you after you stop practicing.
But it covers you after you stop practicing for what you did while you were practicing.
Correct.
Okay. So do you want to give us an all-encompassing 30-second tail coverage, what it is, why I need it, how to get it? Tell me all those things.
So your professional liability again has two triggers, right? The claim has to occur within the retroactive period and the policy period. And then it also has to be reported within that period. What the tail does is it extends that and it goes into the future. So you're basically buying multiple years on the end of that policy once you stop practicing.
I like that. And you know what's funny is I've needed professional liability insurance for years and never ever knew that. Never
Mhm.
knew that. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'm good. All right. So one
I
of
do
the
have a question though.
oh
Can I ask a question? So before we started recording, you mentioned if you have insurance. So what if I have, let's say, iBurk, and then I want to change and I want to come to you. So I'm no longer have this insurance. I'm going to get your insurance, which is still notary insurance.
Mhm.
But now I have your insurance, but the the notarization happened when I had the iBurk insurance. What policy pays for that? And does the policy I get with you have that backward facing retro period? Like, how
Great.
does that happen?
Great question. So when you call me for professional liability, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, do you have a policy currently? And then I'm going to ask you, if you say yes, I'm going to ask you, do you have the declaration page? Because I need something called a retroactive date on that declaration page. And what that allows me to do is to ensure that if any claims come, now that you've moved to the new carrier, that we're going to also pay for that claim that happened in the past. Now, if you didn't have a policy, then I can't
right.
give you a retroactive date. So let's say you started being a notary 6 months ago, but you never purchased a professional liability policy. There isn't anything I can do to cover those claims that might have happened in that 6 months where you didn't have a professional liability. Now, if you did have professional liability, I'm going to ask you for a copy of that declaration page. I'm going to keep it in my files to show that there was previous coverage, and I'm going to match that retroactive date on the new policy so that if anything does get reported, that we have coverage. Now, one of the things we're always going to ask as well is are you aware of any pending litigation or pending claims? And if you say yes, that carrier is going to say, we don't want you, stay where you're at, right? And that's why it's because we know that now you're going to try. So now let's say that previous policy only had $100,000 on it. And now you've come to me and now you're going to increase it to 1 million. Even though I have a retroactive date that dates back, you're not going to get $1 million in coverage if it gets reported tomorrow, but it happened 3 years ago, because
Okay.
you're only going to have what the prior coverage was, right? Now, if something happens tomorrow, once you've signed up with me, and then it gets reported a year from now, now it's good. So we're looking at two triggers always with professional liability. Now,
Do you
earlier,
wanna,
go ahead.
do you want to take a second and clarify that it's not your insurance, that you actually represent
Oh,
a whole
yes.
bunch of different companies and
Yeah.
Byberg is
I,
one of them?
I was going to say, yeah, Byberg is actually the carrier I place most of the professional liability for the notaries with, and there's a very specific reason for that. It's because Byberg has a unique endorsement called the loan notarization or the loan signings endorsement. So because when you go do loan signings, you're doing a little more than notarial acts, if I'm not mistaken, right? Sometimes
Yes.
they want you to mail things and do some other things. When 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 we buy these policies, there's two different kinds of commercial policies out there, okay? There are what we call package policies, which allow us to kind of create different levels of coverage. And then there's business owner policies, which are very canned. And now professional is its own kind of policy. One of the things we never really talk about is general liability, and that's because there's really not a big need for it for most notaries. But now Leslie opened the notary stop, and now she has a premises where customers can come to. So now she doesn't only need professional liability, she also needs general liability, because if someone gets hurt on the premises of her notary stop, she has to have coverage. And that could be a simple slip and fall, or maybe she's doing some advertisement. Your general liability is going to give you advertisement injury coverage. So yeah, we never really talk about
That too.
that covers you in
Never heard of
case
that.
maybe you slander a competitor and they sue you for advertising injury, something like that.
See, Mike takes care of me. I don't even know what I have, but he's got me covered.
Yeah.
So,
And
can
so
I
there's
ask you
other
a
things
question
that,
then?
Mhm.
As a mobile notary, you're going in and out of people's homes. Does a notary need general liability because you could break something? You can knock over a vase or something. Like, should you have general liability along with your notary um, policy?
So great question. If you break something, are you liable? Well, yeah, maybe, right? And but what did you break? And how much is it worth? And would you really make that claim? Right? So we can insure ourselves till we're blue in the face, and I can charge you all kinds of money and I'll get rich off of it. It'd be great. But let's be realistic. You don't have to insure against everything, right? Um,
Okay.
there has to be, you have to kind of balance, like, am I over insuring sometimes? So for instance, I have a friend that has 20 cars. Now, most of them are worth $500. Some of them don't run, they're just sitting on his property. He's not going to insure all 20 cars. He doesn't even take them out. Most of them just sit on the property. They're there for spare parts. They're not really worth much. Now, if he drives them on the road, they have to be insured, right? But he's not worried about the physical damage to a $500 vehicle. If he loses it, he loses it. Does that make sense? It's the
Yep.
same way with your insurance. So one of the questions I've been getting a lot and you can refresh my memory, there's something you guys do, I think apostle or something like that at the Secretary of State.
Yes.
Is that the right word?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So when we started talking about this, we had to ask ourselves, where's the risk? Where's the risk of being sued? What are you doing that someone would sue you for? And we kept coming back to, I can't really think of anything you would be sued for.
Losing the paperwork, but you're already covered by your regular insurance for that.
Right. So, so, and then the home inspections. Well, no, your professional liability is not going to cover you to go do a home inspector because that's not really a notarial act, right? Now, you verifying what's on the paper is correct is really your notarial act if we're being honest, right? And so would your professional liability cover you if you made a mistake there? Well, probably, but I don't think you're the one that's going to get sued there. It's going to be the vendor that sent you out, unless they're asking you to list them as an additional insured on their policy. And now we're going to dig deeper and we're going to talk about, hey, is this something that's really even going to be covered by your professional liability? Because in the eye of the insurance company, this isn't really what we call a notarial act. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yep.
So,
Okay.
so we're very canned when it comes to insurance. It's very black and white. There's not a lot of like, if we start getting in the gray areas, you're probably not covered.
Okay. So some of us do remote online notarizations, which is us sitting at a computer notarizing online using a third-party platform approved by state of Michigan. But when I did run, I had a like cybersecurity writer, a data privacy writer, or something like that. Like, what kind of insurance would a remote online notary need in addition to their general notary policy?
You hit the net on, you hit the nail on the head. Cyber. You need a cyber policy when you start doing stuff like that. And really, um, we should probably all have cyber policies, to be quite frank, even at our for our own personal use, because right now it's just too easy. Like especially with the advent of AI, it's becoming even easier to hack into any type of platform. Um, Matter of fact, they just had a meeting of all the heads of the banks because they're concerned that their systems are going to be vulnerable with this new anthropic AI. So if they can be hacked, we can be hacked. And that can be ransomware, that can be malware, that can be spyware, or it can be viruses, right? All four. And so a really robust cyber policy will cover all of those. So if you really want the best one, then I'd tell you Chubb is probably the leader as far as cyber risk goes. But someone like a Chubb, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, and they're going to make sure that you have a lot of safety features in place before they'll even sell you that policy. But it will pay ransomware and all these other things that we talked about. Now, there are some options out there just on your regular homeowner's policy. So for instance, Safeco, one of the carriers I represent, you can buy up to 50,000 in cyber coverage through Safeco, right through your homeowner's insurance. So everybody's starting to come out with more of these cyber products. There's a lot more standalone cyber products as well. But what you do have to know is that if you are a notary, you're practicing out of your home, and you just add the rider through your homeowner's insurance, it's not going to cover your business because business is usually very excluded within that, right? It's only going to cover your personal exposures. So, as a business, you should be buying a standalone cyber if that's a concern of yours.
So is it like, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
you said something about other securities. So it made me think about when I insure my home, if I have deadbolt and I have security features, my cost for insurance goes down.
Mhm.
Is it the same thing if I have I pay a guy every month to make sure my computers don't have viruses Is that, I know you put me with Chubb, so I know that.
Yep.
But I don't know if I told you that. So can my insurance rates go down?
You did tell me that. We knew
Oh,
that.
darn.
And if you remember, we went through a very detailed fact finder before we got your pricing.
We did.
I had to
Yeah.
ask you things like, do you have two-step authentication set up?
Yeah.
And do you have antivirus? And do you have all these measures in place to protect your data? Now, that can go one of two ways. It can get you a cheaper price, or if you don't have those things, it might be a straight up denial where they say, we're not offering you coverage because you don't have the right security measures in place.
Got you. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm going to put, for those of you who are listening, I'm going to put in the chat who I handle, who handles my cybersecurity what is that called? Whatever it is, it's CIT guru.
Your managed services, your managed
That's
IT
you.
services.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
I'm
So
ready.
now I have another question,
Mhm.
which relates to cyber, because now our phones are just as powerful as our laptops and we connect to our car. Should we have some sort of, do car policies have some sort of cyber? Because I will tell you, I went on vacation, had a rental car, plugged in my phone, and the next thing I know, my bank account, one of my cards was drained, and I'm thinking that I got hacked from using the plugging into the car.
It's
So
possible.
should exactly it could only have been one or two things, and that made me think that was it. So is there such a thing as like auto cyber, or does your homeowner cover you? Like, how do I get
Yeah.
coverage if my phone gets hacked from like a car or
That would
something?
come from your homeowners would be a good, and there is a company out there that'll do individual cyber policies standalone. So you can buy just a cyber policy for your individual self. Um, Now people don't realize this, but one of your biggest risks are your smart home things, like your smart thermostat or your smart light bulbs. Those things have virtually no secure protection in
Security.
them, and
Mhm.
they're just
Yeah.
connecting to your Wi-Fi, right? So if you let that connect to your Wi-Fi, somebody can break into the light and then access your Wi-Fi, and now they're getting into everything. So I was at a networking meeting listening to a very smart IT person, and they mentioned that you should have a separate guest network set up at your home, and then connect all those things like your refrigerator, your washer and dryer, your light bulbs, all those things connect to the guest network, and you keep the things where you house secure information to the other one with a very secure password, right? And these secure passwords, they mentioned should be complicated phrases, not your dog's name and the year you were born, right?
Yeah.
You want a combination of symbols and phrases, and make it something that you can remember, that you don't have saved into a password locker that it can be taken as well.
Let's
So,
take a minute and have a little bit of fun.
sure.
Okay, everybody grab your phone and open up your Wi-Fi settings and tell me what the most unique Wi-Fi name is in your neighborhood. I'll go first. It is not the FBI surveillance van because they're all that, you know. Mine
How
is
did you know?
Lisa, shut your damn dogs up.
That's
Because we have a
awesome.
neighbor who doesn't shut our dogs up. Anybody else want to share theirs? What's out there that's fun?
Mine says, not your business.
Like that
Ooh.
one.
I like that one.
I can only see mine.
Oh, aren't you fun?
I got nothing good over here.
Yeah, nothing good. Jeez, Mike.
Curtis 5G. That's the
Oh,
most
jeez.
interesting one.
Hi,
I
Kurt.
And
How about
I
you, Joe?
can confirm I use my guest network for all of my little smart devices so that
Good job.
my work stuff is on a totally different network.
That's smart.
That's very smart.
Awesome.
I wish I'd have thought of that.
Ours is actually kind of creative. It's NACHO Wi-Fi, Nacho Wi-Fi.
Oh, not.
Awesome.
We've had that for years.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
And Leslie, you can't use that Wi-Fi. Do you know why?
Why?
Because it's
Nacho.
actually, I guess, nachos. So, yes.
Nachos.
What about you, Deb? You got one?
There were a couple. The one I see right now is it's called We've Been Sent Good Wi-Fi is the name of the Wi-Fi. But
Love
before
that.
that, that was one that said Boom Shakalaka. So I hadn't
Yeah.
seen that one before, but I've seen the good Wi-Fi one before. So
Oh, that's funny. Wow.
Go
All
on
right,
the
back to
laptop
business
and see
now.
what my net neighbors have. No, I just have my house, 2.4, my house, Holly's house. Nobody on my street is actually creative, so sorry.
Well,
Uh,
going back to the insurance conversation, I did actually have to make a claim on my insurance and therefore had to actually read what it covered now that I had any clue what any of those words meant. And my concern was that somebody had fraudulently pretended to notarize something as me, but the date that was listed was a date that was before I was a notary. So obviously it wouldn't have been while I had E&O coverage. And so I had to call my insurance company and be like, the policy says that you only cover what happened while I had the policy. Even if I've canceled the policy, if it happened while I had the policy, it's covered by that policy. That's all well and good, except for the part where this happened before I ever could have been a notary or had a policy. So what do I do? And they were like, you know what? We're going to call you back. And they called me back in an hour and said, because I'm making the claim now that it would be covered. But if it was an actual notarization that I had done back then, it would not be covered.
Yes. Yep. Okay. So let's unwrap a couple things there. So you said fraudulent act. Okay. Now, who did you have your policy through? Was it Byberg or do you mind me asking?
That one was through the NNA.
The NNA. Okay. So, um, there is a difference between E&O and professional liability. Okay. Professional liability is going to cover more than just a regular E&O. E&O just means errors and omissions. Now, generally, where I see the big gap is just what you said, fraudulent activity. Generally, an E&O policy will not cover fraudulent activity. And that's where professional is a little bit better. Okay. And so, but you one of the other things you said that is that if I quit doing notary, it would have been covered. It would not have because you reported it after you stopped the policy. There would have been no coverage, right? Because again, there has to be two triggers. One, it had to occur within the retroactive date and the date your policy is still in effect. And then it had to also be reported during the policy term dates. Okay. Now, we didn't go back to this, Deb, but earlier you asked me, what if I had $1 million in E&O today, and then I switch it and I lower it to 100,000, but it happened during the $1 million coverage, and now I only have 100,000 when it's reported. Well, you're not going to have $1 million in coverage now because now you only have 100,000. Okay. So because they're looking at those two triggers, you had to maintain that policy coverage throughout to have that coverage limit. Now, earlier we talked about what if I had 100,000 when it occurred, but then I switched to $1 million later, would I be covered for $1 million? No, because we're going to look at what your coverage level was when it occurred. Does that make sense?
it does.
So they're going to do the two triggers and they're always going to give you the lower of the two amounts, unfortunately.
Sounds like an insurance agent.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the thing.
Can you tell us, Mike, what does that 100,000 or $1 million actually cover? Like, what are we doing with that? Let's say I close a loan worth where the loan amount was $850,000 and I have $1 million worth of coverage And that's why they chose me, because they know my E&O covers it. Let's say something went wrong. I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm getting called into court and I'm being questioned. What does that coverage look like? It's not like basement, they're going to fix my flood, you know? What is it?
So insurance is about indemnification, right? So the insurance is meant to indemnify the injured party. Okay. So the
Okay.
question is, what to what extent was that party injured? Does that make sense? So
Yes.
not in the true sense, but financially injured. So if if you were doing a home loan or a loan signing on an $850,000 house, for instance, that loan never got recorded because you never submitted the paperwork to the Register of Deeds at the county, and then they later had title fraud and sold the house out from under them, and now they're out an $850,000 loan. Well, you're now on the hook for that $850,000, and they're going to come after you. Now, will they get 850,000? I don't know. What are your assets like? Do you have the proper protection? So what happens when someone sues you, the court orders something called an asset interrogatory, okay? And that compiles all your assets. Now, if you've put your company into an LLC and you're an LLC, now again, this is not legal advice. You'll want to check this with a lawyer. This is just my understanding. Um, you're what they do when they determine how much to come after you for, they determine what you're collectible for by issuing this asset interrogatory, which makes you list out everything you own and all that. Now, my understanding is that an LLC will give you some protection of separating your business and your personal assets, but it's not it's not absolute. There are areas where your personal finances will be at risk, even if you have an LLC. So it's not foolproof, but there are some protections afforded by an LLC, which is why a lot of people incorporate it as an LLC. So I advise you just catch all, make sure you got it all covered, because I can't advise you on where that line is. It's a gray area.
Gray areas. The
Yeah.
whole conversation when I met you the first time, one person said it was a gray area, and you were like, no, there's specifics. So let's talk. We're going to pivot just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a vehicle and I want to put stickers on the windows that say mobile notary with my phone number, whether I have my business name or not, is that covered by my auto insurance, or do I need a business vehicle insurance for that?
So a couple things. It depends. So if the vehicle is in your personal name, you can certainly insure it on a personal auto policy, but that policy is going to have some strict language about how commercial activity is not covered. Now, real estate agents use their car all the time for work, right? As long as they're not transporting a client, that's perfectly fine. They can drive to and from work. It's no different than you going to commute for work, okay? Now, the problem with having your name on the business or the business name on the vehicle is that if you get in an accident and you're at fault, they're going to want to include everybody they can when they uh, issue the lawsuit, right? So they're going to sue Leslie. They're going to sue Leslie Hocker Mobile Notary, if that's the name, right? They're going to try to bring them all into the lawsuit, okay? And your personal auto policy is going to look at Leslie Hocker LLC and say, we don't cover them. We're not protecting them. We're not defending them. We're not doing anything for them, right? They're going to exclude that part of it. So your business is no longer protected. Now your business is being sued. Now, there's a couple ways to do that. You can purchase a commercial auto policy in the name of your business. You can lease that vehicle to your business, even though it's in your personal name. And that creates what's called insurable interest. So now you've got a write-off for your business. You've insured your vehicle in the business name, and you're insuring it. So now what you've done is you've created a separation from your personal to your, it's no different than leasing it from Ford Motor Company. Ford Motor Company actually owns that lease. You don't own it. You're just in care, custody, and control of the vehicle. Okay. So one, we can do it that way. The other way we can do it is if you have a general liability policy, there is something, an endorsement you can add on there called hired non-owned auto. And that covers vehicles that you might rent in the name of your business, or it covers vehicles that your employees or you, if you're an employee of your company, use that are their personal vehicles. Okay. It's a very nominal fee for that, and it's very easy to do. Now, if you have a commercial auto policy, general liability will not give you that coverage. They want the commercial auto carrier to cover that. So, so there's some different things we have to look at there, and a lot of it depends on the type of business. So, for instance, if you're a contractor, you're maybe you're a tile person or you're doing drywall or painting, nobody is going to give you a hired non-owned auto because too many of those guys use their normal vehicle for business and try not to carry commercial auto, and they really want them to have a commercial auto policy because they know they're using it to deliver goods and products and building materials. So a lot of it depends on what your business is.
All right, pivoting again to side gigs. Okay, so I would like you to meet Joe Lopez. He's got a cool group on Facebook called Notary Side Gigs. And most every notary that I know is part of that group because for most people, only doing notarizations is not going to pay all the bills that they have. So they do with all these side gigs. And some of these side gigs, this is where this all came from, is Heather is here. Heather Aldridge from Solstice Mobile Notary. She is the one who was like, Leslie, do I need insurance for this? And that's when I called you. And that's why you're here tonight. So between Joe and Heather, they have some questions for you. Well, Joe knows like all the side gigs, and Heather's got some very specific questions about different side gigs. So I'm going to let them kind of chat with you and see. And because I really like how you like are so passionate about this that we just say something and you're like, ooh, there is no doubt that you know what you're doing. So thank you. So go ahead, Joe, Heather, whoever wants to go first.
Heather, go right ahead. You seem to have some specific questions, so I will let you drive.
Yeah, I think most of mine were answered. I ended up having a conversation with Mike as well and with Leslie. The two side gigs that I'm currently researching getting into were field inspections, and I was curious about that. And then we already covered apostilles. That was the other one that I was kind of thinking about moving forward with. But the field inspection, especially, I have not started those. I know one of the struggles for me was when I talked to Mike was that I had to start doing them before I could get insurance for them, but didn't want to do them without insurance. So I felt kind of like stuck there, and just wanted to understand what type of policy I would need for field inspections to see whether it's even worth it for me to go into that. If it's a very expensive policy and I'm just gonna, try a few to see what it's like, it might not be worth it for me. So just kind of general questions about what the path forward is there, and if most people are even doing that. It doesn't sound like they are.
So let's touch on that because I do remember our conversation. So, your notary policy for professional liability is only going to cover you to do notarial acts. That's it. Now, the Byberg policy does allow, like I said, there is that endorsement for loan signings. Okay. So it does encompass a few more things in addition to the regular notarial acts, right? And that's because they built a specialized product for it. But when you start venturing outside of that, that policy is not going to cover you. Now, when we talked about the inspections, my question to you was, who are you representing when you go out there? Are you representing Heather Aldridge, the notary, or are you representing someone like A Plus Reports? Okay, so you're representing someone like A Plus Reports. That means if there's something that goes wrong, A Plus Reports is the one that's going to get sued. They don't even know who you are. They probably give you some sort of badge, I would guess, or something to wear, I would hope, to identify yourself as working for that service, right? Um, Now, you have risk though. What if you go out into that property and there's a dog and it bites you?
Mhm.
What then? You're going to try to sue the homeowner? Did the homeowner know you were there and let you on their property? That's probably where it's going to go. You're going to have to try to
Mhm.
sue that homeowner. Okay. Now, you might be able to make a workers' comp claim against the acting
Mhm.
party, but they probably made you sign something saying you were exempt from workers' comp as a 1099 sole proprietor contractor. So you're not going to get very far there. So really there's more risk to you personally than there is you being sued in that scenario. And that's what I wanted to convey to you is look, we don't always need insurance. Now, what you're doing, the only way for me to really ensure that would be to call you a home inspector, but that's not really what you're doing.
Mhm.
A home
Yeah.
inspector is somebody that goes out and assesses the condition of a property and signs off on it as part of a real estate transaction, right? So, and I know what these types of jobs pay because we utilize these people. Those jobs you were doing were probably for an insurance carrier, I'm guessing. Um, Ultimately, and they use a third party service all the time. Like A Plus Reports is one of them. There's a lot of them, but that's just one of the ones I know. And so when I look at that, I think what could go wrong that you're going to get sued for? And so you have to be realistic about, do I really have risk here, right? Because insurance is about the indemnification of loss and the mitigation of risk, right? So absent of risk, we don't need insurance. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I mean, a major concern for me would be like if I were injured, because most commercial insurance policies have an exclusion that if you are operating as someone who is doing employed work at the time, they're not going to cover that. So, like, if I were injured and my health insurance is not covering that, I'm kind of stuck unless I can sue the homeowner successfully. And who knows, like, how much insurance they have available or what assets they might have available to even cover that.
So if that's your concern, then what you can do is you can purchase workers' comp on yourself. And
Hmm.
it'll be based on how much you make a year.
Yeah.
And so, but you'll be audited every year, and that's a way to do that.
Hmm.
Now, because you're a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, you are exempt from carrying workers' comp if you don't want to. Now, if you had employees, you'd be required by law to carry that. But that just because you're exempt don't mean you can't buy it. You can still
Right.
buy it. And so that would be a way to cover that risk is to purchase workers' comp. But again, we're going to call you a home inspector, and home inspectors get on roofs. And so
Yep.
their workers' comp is pretty expensive. So it's not a
Hmm.
But
cheap policy.
it's more of a field inspection.
I know, but they're going to call
Oh,
you a home. So
oh,
so
really? Oh,
again,
okay.
we have very strict guidelines when it comes to workers' comp, and we're going to fit a round peg into a square hole or a square
Yep.
peg into a round hole, however you want to word it. So so there's only so many classifications. And so what we do when you tell us what you're doing for a living, we try to find the best fit based on what you're doing. Now,
Mhm.
if you're doing multiple things, which you are, they're going to look at it and they're going to say, all right, she does notarizations and she does field inspections, we'll call it home inspections, whatever you want to call it. They're going to look at that and they're going to say, all right, notaries are, I don't know, they're like an office and admin employee. It's probably like 12 cents for every $100 in payroll. But
Mhm.
a a field inspector might be $3 for every $100 in payroll. So they're gonna make you put all of your payroll up into that higher
Yep.
threshold unless you have a payroll system that tracks hours based on the job. And so if you have a good payroll system that will track your hours
Yeah.
between the two different codes, then we can separate it out. Otherwise, they're going to kick everything up to the most expensive code.
Yeah, I did have another question about the aposties. We were talking about like what is the risk? And something that I was thinking about was saying like, okay, if somebody comes and they're having an overseas wedding, and you say, okay, I can get it done by this time, and something happens, you don't get it done in time, they're not able to go. Like I'm looking at liability from that standpoint and thinking like whose liability would that be? Could someone successfully sue? Or I mean, I guess successfully
May-
doesn't even matter because there's a cost to defend yourself. But
Maybe,
is
but
it
the
likely
insurance
that
probably
someone
wouldn't
would
cover
sue?
you for something like that because that's like that's like that's a subjective thing. and
Hmm.
and you're making promises that you can't keep at that point. And
Hmm.
so the insurance is not going to want to insure against that because
Hmm.
how do they know that you're qualified to make those judgment calls timing wise? Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
So I don't
Yeah,
even
so
know,
I'm
even
not
if I,
doing episodes
yeah,
yet, so I'm not sure if people are
mhm,
quoting timeframes when they
yeah,
are doing them.
Yes, but when I quote a time frame, I'm saying it typically takes about this long.
mhm.
Hmm.
There's enough qualifiers in there. I'm
It,
comfortable with it.
Yeah, so you're not giving a guarantee,
It's
Yeah,
right?
but
don't com
it's easy enough for the apostille process, and I think this might be where our disconnect is. You schedule appointments online for that. You can literally say, "Give me 10 seconds," and you go online, you schedule the appointment. So that wouldn't be that's like a not a real life scenario unless something happened to you, like you were in a car accident. And then that would be a whole different scenario. But one other side gigs, I'm thinking wedding officiant as side gig. Notaries cannot officiate weddings if they do not have the officiate, if they're not actually a clergy, okay, whatever through the United, what is it? ULC? I don't know, it's
United
Life
Life
Church, yeah.
Church.
yes, that. So
Universal
anyway,
Universal Life Church, yeah.
Universal Life Church. So a
Hmm.
notary, as just a notary, cannot officiate weddings. I just want to make that official right there. But Mike, should somebody have um some sort of liability policy for a wedding officiant?
yeah, and it would require a second policy. So that's the other thing you have to understand. Your professional liability only covers that profession for which you bought it. Okay. So
Oh,
it's not covering your side gigs. It's not covering all these other things you do. So for instance, I am an insurance agent. So my E&O covers me to do insurance and annuities. That's all. If I want to do financial advising, I got to buy another policy for that. If I'm also a travel agent, I don't know if you know that, but I'm also a travel agent. When I act as a travel agent, I have to have a different E&O policy. Just so happens the network I'm part of covers that for me, but it's a separate E&O policy. My insurance E&O is not going to cover a mistake I make in travel.
so everything has its own thing. Joe,
Yep.
what other side gigs are out there that people are doing?
You're
Oh, you're
muted.
on mute.
I actually have a list up I was going to share, but I have this copy paste that I'm about to pop into chat. And I think that's just
Okay,
going to you. Let me pop this in here.
sure.
There's actually quite a long list. We have
Oh,
covered officiant, signing agent, apostille. Um, there's a gig where you can be a signing agent for cars. When somebody here they buy a car car at a car dealership out of state, they will send you the packet of forms you have to go to meet the person who bought the car, help them sign everything and send it back, and then the car would get shipped to them. Estate plans,
we cannot
photo
create estate
inspections,
plans. We cannot create estate plans. We can only
not
do the
create,
notarizations
to
on them.
sign them.
I
No,
know,
no,
I know. I
100%. Yeah,
want to make sure that anybody listening doesn't think they
understand.
can create an estate plan.
We got you.
Just gotta keep it that. Yeah.
The USCIS, the Form I-9, acting as an authorized rep. Perhaps that's one, Mike, we can talk about. We obviously aren't going to conduct that role as a notary, but it kind of sounds like a lot of these gigs might fall under the same type of insurance, basically.
If it's a notarial act, it
Yeah,
will
but no,
that the
these are
notor
not.
no,
These are not. Yeah.
right, the notarial act in itself will be covered. So a notarial act, what are they? They're verifying a signature. right?
Right.
That's something that's normal as a notary. Verifying someone is who they say they are. I believe that's a notarial act. That's essentially what the I-9 verification is. You're
But the
just going out,
I-9, you're not signing as a notary.
you're not
Correct.
signing as a notary, but you're still performing the same type of act, aren't you? I mean,
Well,
Validating the
technically, it's
ID of
not
the
one of the
signer.
things, and the law does not allow you to do
so
that as a notary. So,
gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
yes.
So
So
then
you're
your E&O probably wouldn't cover you if the law says it's not a notarial act, is what
Our
you're saying.
official title when doing I-9s is an authorized representative of the
Yes.
company. We're not signing as a notary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So you are no longer, when you do that, acting as Heather McGrain notary, right? You're now acting as an authorized representative of whatever company. You're a 1099 contractor, and their policy is the one that's going to have to cover them. Now, if they say to you, listen, for you to take this job, I need to see a copy of your general liability or your professional liability, and I want to be listed as an additional insured on it. Now, now you have to, your ears have to perk up and say, okay, wait a minute. Why? Well, that's because they want to be able to sue your policy if something goes wrong. Okay. If they're not requiring that, then they're feeling pretty confident that their policy is going to cover this job, and you probably don't need any coverage. Because if they're sending you out there under their name, they're going to want to be covered.
Is that the same as like for a process server? Because that's on the list too.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
I'm assuming. Okay.
Here's the thing.
No,
Without case
process
law,
server
it's hard to
needs like
say.
a whole license and certification
Oh.
thing. And so there's got to be policies specifically
Oh.
for that.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
So
Good
What
to know.
about if you were acting as a witness, not necessarily the notary? I am a notary. If I act as a witness and then I get called into this whole court thing too, like, is there any, and all I did was witness, I did sign, but I didn't notarize. How am I covered?
You're not.
Or am I? Okay.
Yes, you are. Wait, hold on. I know the answer to this.
Oh, okay.
Because remember, Mike, I had to go through that whole we might file a claim thing. So when I was talking to the people from Chubb, they said that I would get paid to go to court and that my witnesses would get paid to go to court too.
But you were being sued as a notary, correct?
I was, yes.
So that's why it paid out. And you do part of your policy. It's not only if I get sued, it will defend me, and it will also pay me a per day fee to go be a witness in court as a notary.
And
Now,
then,
but what she was saying is if I'm just a witness, I wasn't a notary and I get sued.
right, but she was a witness to a notarial act, is what she was talking about.
I don't think so. But if
That's
that's
what they
then I
told me.
misunderstood. Okay.
That's what when I called, and
Oh.
maybe you need to check into that because when I called, I had two notaries as my witness on that incident, and
Mhm.
I said, what if we have to go to court? Like, what happens? And they said, oh, we will pay for you to go. And I'm like, cool. What about my witnesses? And they said, we will pay for them to go too. So
Yes,
it's
but
all covered under my policy.
right, but Debbie was saying if I'm this DNA witness and it's not a notarial act, I'm just going to be a witness. That's what I'm referring to.
Notary would have to get sued, and hopefully, if they had Chubb-like coverage, I would be covered. But we know Chubb is like top dog, so maybe I need to ask that
Top
question
dog.
next time I want to be a witness for somebody. What kind of insurance you got?
No,
Just
it'll pay other witnesses to come forward too to defend that policy. It will.
okay, okay,
But
all
my
right.
understanding, and I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you were saying I'm out there doing something that's got nothing to do with notary and I'm a witness.
Oh, like you saw a
No,
car
no,
accident happen?
Right.
I
Yeah, no,
got you.
that's
Oh
not
no,
true. I knew what she meant.
I got you.
can,
Leslie speaks Debbie.
can we
I
go
think
back?
Arnetta had a question.
I
Annette.
do. I
Annette,
have two
okay.
questions. So let's go back to the insurances. One question is, what if one of my side gigs ask for me to place them as a lost payee? That's the first question. Second question is, I recall now. I recall seeing insurance policies under an umbrella with multiple. If someone owns multiple companies, right? And they're under the same policy or the same umbrella. So
Okay.
I come from a mortgage slash financial background, banking background,
Mhm.
and one of my jobs was to review their E&O and fidelity bond, right, to make sure they had the proper coverage, deductible, so on and so forth. And I recall seeing policies where the owner owned a mortgage company, a title company, and something else in that arena, right? But going back to you saying you need a separate policy for everything. So
Okay.
yeah,
So let's cover your first question, a lost
yes,
payee.
yes,
Okay. To be a lost payee, there has to be insurable interest. Where's the insurable interest? So a lost payee wouldn't apply to a professional liability policy. It might apply to a business owner policy where you've purchased equipment, okay, and they
okay,
want to be listed as a lost payee in case that equipment were to maybe catch on fire, right? Or
right,
or we have a property, then there's a mortgage there. That's where there'd be a lost payee. There has to be real property for there to be a lost payee. Does that make
okay,
sense?
yep, it does. Okay,
So with absent loss, like real property, there is no loss pays. It's now we're like, so there's different types of what we call additional insureds. There's probably 30 to 40 different kinds of additional insureds. And it relates to the like what their interest is in the policy. So manager or lesser of premises is one. That's the most common one we see. That's like if you're renting a space from a landlord, they want to be listed as a manager lesser additional insured. Okay.
okay,
It could be that you have a contract with them. So we see that in with contractors all the time. If there's subcontracting work from a
right,
general contractor, they're going to
right,
want to be listed as an AI. And we can do something called blanket AIs. And then there just has to be a contract in place. And then there's automatic status. Okay. So with the loss pay, again, that's not going to apply to professional liability. It's going to be more the business owner policy type thing
right,
or a commercial package policy.
okay,
Now, you mentioned you can have multiple entities on one policy. That
right,
we see that all the time. We might have someone that has multiple entities, but they're in the same type of field, right? So you got a loan officer, a title, those are kind of hand in hand,
right,
okay? They kind of work in unison. So there are niche carriers out there that might cover those things together under one policy. And so we can approach certain carriers like that, and especially in the E&S market. E&S market is what we call excess and surplus lines. These are hard to place risks, things that normal carriers don't want to do. You will never find a Byberg policy that will cover loan origination, title, and real estate all in one policy. So when we talk about standard line companies, which are insured by the state that they're domiciled in, there's a guarantee fund out there for them. So when they're standard, if they go belly up and they can't pay their claims, the state is insuring them under the Guarantee Association, and they're
okay,
making sure that those claims get paid out.
okay,
In the excess and surplus lines, there is no safety net. So you have to be diligent to make sure that they're A-rated carriers, and now these guys, they get to write what are called their own forms. Everybody else in the standard market, they use what's called ISO forms, and they have to all be approved by the state. When we go standard line, they can, and the forms are the policy language. They can write that policy language however they want and do whatever they want in that policy language. So when we go there, we might be able to couple a bunch of different things together in one policy, but you're going to pay a lot more. There is no guarantee that your claims will be paid out, and you have to be very diligent to make sure that they're highly rated companies, right? And then you also have to be really careful about the policy language because there's undoubtedly some crazy exclusions built into that policy.
okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have, it is We have 6 minutes left, people. Do we have any other questions, or can we let Mike go back to his regularly scheduled programming?
This was so good. And the way you just described that whole thing, the name of your your YouTube, what is it?
The insurance
Dirt. I was like, that is the perfect name because you went, but here's the thing, you made it understandable. As a notary, we hear so many things that are like legalese or law speak, and it's hard to get down to the plain English to make it make sense. You make it make sense. So thank you so much for making it easy and, making us this hour like flew by. It really did, because I feel like we just started and we're already at the end. So thank you so much. I think you might be my favorite guest. So, no sweat, no shade to the other guests we've ever had. This was so informative. And I'm going to be checking that, going back to check my insurance, because I wrote down at 725 you talked about car insurance and leasing it to yourself or something. I'm going back to watch that part. I could use another tax write-off. So thank you for all those great
Do me a favor,
tips.
subscribe to that Insurance Store channel. You'll get some good info on there.
Done.
And he
I'm
looks
doing
funny when he does it too. It's actually very adorable.
I wear a bow tie.
He does. He does. You got to have a gimmick, right? There you go. Mike, thank you so much for this. Once again, it's been too long. Thanks, Joe. It has been too long since we've had you on. If anybody wants to go back a couple years, we actually had Mike on our podcast like 2 years ago. So it is hidden on the Detroit Deb channel out there. And I send it to people all the time. I post it in Facebook groups when they're all like, no, this is what it covers. This is what it covers. I'm like, no, this is what it covers. Here you go, right here. So we're really happy to have found you. And I will never forget the day that we met. It was at the Ford dealer in St. Clair. So thank you so much. I appreciate you coming. Deb's going to wrap it up here, and then we're going to turn off the recording, and anybody can go to bed if they want to.
Well, thank you so much for having me, guys.
Just thank you so much. This was fantastic. The next podcast is on the last Saturday of this month. I don't know what the date is actually.
25th.
25th at 8 a.m. I don't know what our topic is, so just be there.
We're just going to sit and chit chat, I think.
Yeah.
Heather will come up with something.
So thank you, thank you for everybody that came and all the good questions. These were one of the most interactive sessions we've had in a long time. So I want to thank everybody for coming. Thank you again, Mike. This was chef's kiss. This was great.
Awesome. Ooh, I got a chef's kiss today too. We both got it today.
I'm feeling generous, like I'm feeling all Italian today. Like,
chef's kiss kind of.
It's not like Paul Hollywood's handshake, though.
Oh, well, that's true. That's true. He's almost as good looking as Paul Hollywood does, so we'll give him that. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you. We'll see you on the 25th.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I'm on mute. Quick question. The website said it was from 7 to 8:30. Did we start early? Because I got here right at like 7:02, and it seemed like you guys were knee deep in it already.
We started early because Mike came on early and we were chatting, and it just came that way.
We got excited.
The